Alright, let's get started. So our presentation is about hosting your Citrix stacks on Azure, or our Citrix stack in this case, was for customer office. The session is based on our experiences, the best practices we find out, and also the challenges we had and the cost, etc. So, my name is Anton van Pelt. I know a lot of you, some I don't. So, welcome. I'm a senior consultant at PQR. You can find me on Twitter. Do some blogging every now and then. With me I have my colleague Patrick.
Hello, I'm Patrick van der Boer. I'm also a senior consultant at PQR, and I do some things in the community. So I'm awarded Citrix Technology Advocate, and I'm also part of Team RG. I also have my own blog, and maybe you can follow me on Twitter. So the agenda for today, we will start with the customer case. We started with a proof of concept, which go into production at the customer. So what was the customer case here? The architecture we built on Azure. Then the first discussion we had with the customer was about cloud costs. So we will give you some insights of that. We also give you some Citrix on Azure facts. What are the limits? Where do you need to aware about? Citrix machine creation services. So how do you provision all the workers on Azure? How does this work? Some Citrix smart scaling for just add additional workers and do something smart with all your workers to reduce the costs. We will tell you something about the Citrix NetScaler on Azure, and on the end some lessons learned. So the customer case is delivering, like now, how do we call it, Anton? Telco as a service?
Yeah, telco as a service, yeah.
Something like that.
Call center as a service, yeah.
Yeah, and they were searching for a flexible workspace. They have 2 offices in the Netherlands, and it was very hard for them to find any employees handling all the telephone as a service requests of their customers. So they decided they want to have remote workers all over the Netherlands, and they want to build the environment in Azure. And they also want to have the ability to fast onboard new contracts. So the go-to-market time is very low. And lately, after we built this environment, they were able to answer customer requests within 1 week. So they won the contract because they do not have to build everything on-prem, and they now started an office within 1 week or something like that, just with an internet connection, and they're good to go.
They have to win the contract.
Yeah, and it's a very big contract in the Netherlands, so that's great. So they just installed 2 application image, boot up 150 desktops, and you're good to go. Also burst capacity, they have a high concurrency, and that's demanding on the request of the customer. So some days they have only 30 customers working, and other days they have 150, so the cloud is very good for them. In the POC we tested the server-based computing and VDI in the cloud. So this customer was very unlucky because they're using Avaya and they're not are able to offload it. So we used the audio in the VDI session, but Avaya and Road Warrior mode is only support on Windows 10. So we have to do VDI. So I'm very curious in the future how this will work with Windows Virtual Desktop Service Windows 10. The audio experience is quite good when using Citrix HDX UWP. Yeah, there's no delay in the line. We tested it for 2 hours, so that's great.
Did you have to tweak a lot to get that working, the audio?
No.
Okay.
No, just make sure you're using UDP, so the EDT of Citrix.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the audio was great, even through the NetScalers.
Want to talk for 2 hours?
No, I had some experience with another project, like, okay, test your Skype for Business, and they just call somebody and then, hello, it works, and hang up.
Put you on hold.
Yeah, but then we go to production, and there was an error, a licensing error in this case, and they will cut off all the calls after 10 minutes. So when I'm testing audio in phone calls in Citrix, I always tell the customer, call somebody, put the phone for 1 hour, and then try it again. So that makes sense. Because of the high concurrency rate, they decided not to use the Citrix cloud services, so we installed all the on-premise backend services on Azure.
So the architecture of this environment is based on several VNets within Azure. So you see the first VNet, which is mainly the backend of the environment. So you see a resource group for the ADCs, for the backend servers, the delivery controller, storefront, licensing. Also a SQL database environment. And the was that the call center? Or? You put a note. There was also, and we used a VPN gateway to make the connection to the office, which was based in the Netherlands as well. So they have a site-to-site VPN within Azure to connect to their machines without having a public IP available to manage their stuff, which is a very bad idea.
Yeah, and even the Windows layer in Azure, the VoIP is also going through the site-to-site connection.
Yeah.
To the via on-prem.
So what we did here is we created a separate virtual network to isolate the VDAs for each customer. So each customer has a separate virtual network, so they can't reach any other VDAs or customers that are based in this area.
Question.
Hmm?
Why didn't you guys use an express route? I mean, you got MPL in 2 sites.
Yeah, the Express route, we have we started the project at a very small time. They investigate Express route and they're now willing to use SD-WAN from Citrix. So we're now looking into redesign the design and add workers on-prem. It's not there at the moment. And to put SD-WAN connection between all the sites.
So basically what the call here is they going to change the workload from Azure to the on-premises data center for their customers who are in the office. So only for the remote workers they will keep the Azure environment. But the management will still exist here. So we do a delivery controller on-prem to separate all the MCS traffic.
But that's planned.
That's the plan. So that's what we're working out today. So this is mainly what we do. So in the future we can easily scale out those office clients to have several other offices, connect them via the VPN to Azure, or maybe Citrix SD-WAN. That's also a possibility for the future.
So when the first bill came after a month, the customer started, hey, this is very expensive. And then we took the customer, so I will give you some insights in the cost. So when you start using cloud, you need to think different than on-prem, even with your sizing. So my advice to the customer is always start as small as possible. So you've got the cheap instances and disks, monitor it, example through cache diagnostics, and expand or reduce the resources proactively. So you're not paying too much when not needed, or everything is slow because you have too small resources. So topics during this presentation is about sizing and smart scale, but you can do other things, like you can investigate the hybrid use benefit. So you do not have to, you get a reduction of your VM, so the Windows license is not included in the IaaS. You can look for reserved instances. I saw some logs, if you have a VM instance running for more than 96 hours, then it will become very interesting to go from a pay-as-you-go model to reserved instances. You can also use clouding, or we are using Cloud Health. They can examine your current install base and give you some advice about, oh, maybe this VM is oversized and you can reduce it, or some other tips. Azure Advisor will also give you tips about this. And one thing our pre-sales forgot, and maybe the customer also, please use Azure Cost Calculator up front. So you have some cost estimation when you start the project, and you're not surprised when receiving the first bill. There's also a cost calculator for Citrix. You can find it on Google, and then you fill in all your parameters, and then you will have a cost overview of how much the whole environment will cost you.
You can use it in advance, so if you want to get a basic idea, you can use the cost calculator already, see what the different disks do, etc.
Can you guys share a ballpark figure of how much it costs, how many users?
I do not have the details with me for this.
We have some sizing or some costs for basic VMs, what they will be.
How many guys are they?
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, some facts up front. When we started, I wanted to use the SQL pass, and it's not possible when using Citrix Virtual Apps and Desktop. And this is caused by the fact the delivery controller needs to have computer authentication on the SQL, and that's not possible for the pass. So you need a SQL Server instance installed by yourself. You have to bring a Windows 10 Enterprise agreement if you want to do Windows 10 on Azure. There is no support, or don't use Azure Classic if you are planned to use it, or you're able, for some reason, do not use it. It's not supported. Use Azure Managed Disk. This is a new feature in Citrix Virtual Apps and Desktop, only in the current release channel or when you're using Citrix Cloud. So if you are on long-term service release, you're not able to use the managed disks. And managed disks will give you faster provisioning times for MCS, and you do not need to calculate all the IOPS per storage account. So this is really great. Please keep in mind, the MCS VM provisioning can take up 7 minutes per VM. So when the delivery controller decides to boot up a VM, it will take 7 minutes until it's registered. So you, on an on-prem installation, you need to adjust all the registration of the timers on the delivery controller. Otherwise, you will have all the red angles like, hey, it took too long, and it will retry it and shut it down and power it on again. And one tip for VDI: don't destroy the VM after log off or recycle the VM. Because what I experience in testing, and then you have a small group of desktops, and with smart scaling you want to have a small buffer of reserved desktops, is that when the user logs off, MCS will remove the VM, and then the user wants to log on in again and needs to wait for 7 minutes until the VM is re-provisioned. So the thing is, and will be later on in this presentation, we use smart scale, buffer and power off delays for this. So we create a power off delay, and then when the user decides to log in back within 2 minutes, the VM is still there. And never use a default wizard blades. That was what I've learned. And watch your storage cost, and especially with managed disks. If you use the default wizard blades and you do not adjust the images, you will have 3 times the price for all your managed disks.
But they're very fast.
Yeah.
So the sizing cost contains basically on monthly costs. So you pay for compute and storage, so which is the VM and the disk. But you also have micro costs for IOPS, which are getting into the disk or outside the disks. You also have micro cost based on networking, and that is outside traffic. So the traffic that goes out Azure, that's where you charge for. So what we did at this customer, but we'll come back later, we made some shutdown scripts to basically shut down the workers during the night when there's no one in the office, but Patrick will come back to that. There are also some soft limits within Azure. There are hard limits, of course, but the soft limits is basically on your account, and it will prevent you from creating, for instance, what you see here is you are not able to create more than 100 network security groups by default. That is a soft limit. So if it's a limit for you, you run against it, you can create a support case within the Azure portal, and you can say I want to have 200 at a max. So that special amount will get higher.
You had the limit for the
CPU, I used the MSDN account for Azure, the $130 credit, and I had a limitation about 20 vCPUs, I think. So at that time I run against it. Even if they were not running, you have a fixed limit, and you can create a support case and get that limitation up to 100 or something.
What was the duration of the support case for you?
It was directly fixed, so I think it's a kind of automation process if it's not running against any maximum limits, so they will raise it for you. So it's just a protection to realize that you will not get over it.
So when you start a project at a customer, you can get some insights of their Azure limits in the subscription. So if you can see up front if you have a limit of CPUs, and you can adjust it. Otherwise you will put the third one, and then it won't boot because of the Azure limit.
Yep. So that's what we run into. By default, there is no need to hire it, but keep in mind that you can do already on the sizing unit before you can see are my soft limits running or creating an issue here.
So on the compute part, this customer has done some calculations themselves, and they calculated all with the basic VMs, and these are the VMs I've seen in our project, and the customer selected the A basic because he thought it was the cheapest. He didn't see the burstable VMs. But for example, the basic A is only used for testing purposes and not for production. You can use a standard A VM, but yeah, that's very low spec, low CPU. So if you need some of performance, or I think that's not a good one for a delivery controller, for example. On the other hand, you have the D series. The D series has, they're supposed to be for databases. That's some of the use case for this, and they have 2 vCPUs, 8 gigs, so they have more memory.
So it's more like a recommendation that it can use for databases.
Yeah.
So it's not like there used to be Jane database, but the performance is like what Nutanix does with the hardware. They recommend that specific hardware for using it within Azure and not on their appliance. But you can do something else on it, but maybe it's not the best performance or the set of resources there. So that's what it's just a guide.
Yeah. And the F series, that's more the 2 vCPU 4 gigs we assign mostly on prep. And then you got the B series, and the B series in some use cases are very interesting. They are called it's burstable VMs. And what it basically is, for me it looks like the same specs as the F series, but I think they're more in a shared cluster. And these burstable VMs are for low CPU usage VMs. So for example, if you have the B2S series, if you are below 40% CPU usage, you are banking credits, and you can spike until 100%, you're using the credits. So if you don't have a CPU intensive VM, maybe that's a choice for you, because they're much cheaper than the other VMs. Other thing I've learned, because the SKU size letters were new for me, so what are all those numbers and things in the names? And the S stands for SSD support, so premium storage. And what I've learned, if you, please use always a VM with an S series, because if you're not using a VM with an S series, for example, which HDD disk, and you want to upgrade to SSD disk, you have to destroy the VM and recreate it. And VM with an S series supports SSD and HDD, and they're not more expensive. If you see a VM with an M, it has more memory than usual, so that's the sign for it. And what I've seen is that newer versions of VMs are cheaper, so if the new version of a VM is available in your region, you may consider to use a newer version of the VM. There are also GPU VMs, and this is in the West Europe region, because in other regions there are now V2 VMs. And I think for a VDI or server-based computing workload, only the NV series is interesting. Although they're very, very expensive if you have one user for almost €1,000 a month pay-as-you-go. So
Did you guys use any?
At this customer we didn't, but we have done some POCs and pilots to run this on this load.
On Azure.
The question is, the price is on 8-hour basis. They own 24 hours now.
This is on 24 hours
Yeah.
basis. 24 hours 1 month, this is the price.
Okay, but it will not run.
Not on my €130 MSDN account.
A couple hours.
Yeah, but I tested something with this. I contacted Ruben, and Ruben is in Frame, and I put up the NV series in Frame. So to test things out, and you get 4 M60 GPUs, so that's a lot of power, but for a high price.
Yeah.
So for our POC, when we started only with all the B series, and it's roughly only for the EAS VMs, about pay-as-you-go €508 a month in West Europe. So it's a 1 year pay-as-you-go only for the VM, €6,000. So I think it's very expensive, but that's when it's powered on all the time.
Keep in mind that it's only the backend, so there is no worker yet. So the load has to come. This is only serving the backend to get the VDAs running.
And for the NetScaler, we figured out if you have the NetScaler design per VM, you're also limited of the amount of NICs you can configure per SKU. So for example, if you're choosing the
I will come back on that later.
F-Series, you're only allowed to add 2
You
NICs.
should take your specific compute size for the extra things.
Correct.
Yeah, go ahead.
And at the end, how many hours do you let it run per day?
Well, they do some shifts, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe you can explain that.
Yeah, we created a shutdown and power on script, and they started at 7, all the whole environment booted up, and they are allowed to work until 5, so we shut it down at 6 o'clock in the evening. So the cost will be lower because we're not powered on all the time.
It should be around €250 then.
Maybe.
300.
Wow.
And the domain controller stuff that's still on premises, you don't do any other extra
Yeah,
infrastructure?
this was a extra infrastructure for them, so they switched to Citrix, etc., and moved to Azure. So they had the whole infrastructure already on-prem, so this is an extension of the data center which was running on premises.
Okay, something about storage. I will not dig into all the options. We use local storage redundancy. You can also do it per zone, global, or read access globally. So the cheapest storage is from the left, the local redundancy. So again, don't use managed disks. Managed disk at our project were only premium SSD and standard HHD. And the standard SSD, I think it's released after Ignite or something like this. I don't know. It's now available. But keep in mind, for the managed disks, you have the custom fixed size. And by default, if you're deploying a Windows Server image from the marketplace, it will assign a 127 gigabyte disk. And I think only 11 or 13 gigabyte is really filled on the disk. So you pay a lot of air over here. So if you put small disk in a bracket in the marketplace, you can just select another image and start with a small size of your disk. For example, here 30 gigabytes, and increasing or expanding disk is easier than reducing it.
For me, this was one of the best Azure cheats till now.
So this is something you can do also for your workers, but I can imagine if you have a ZApp environment, you have to calculate with how many profiles will land on the disk to have enough size over there. So for example, if you're using the premium SSD with a marketplace image, you will pay €18.29 per managed fee disk. So if you start with 30 gigabytes, you reduce it, you will reduce it to €4.90. But please keep in mind the IOPS are lower and even the throughput.
You have to pay for IOPS as well, right? So it's not that this is not a cost; these are the basic costs. So the micro, what I explained earlier, the micro costs will come by on this.
Yeah. And the same is for standard HHD. 128 gigs will cost you roughly €5 in West Europe. And if you go back to 32 gigabytes, so if you have a 30 gigabytes image, it will cost you €1.30 for the managed disks.
Did you guys base the sizing on the IOPS or
For
you just went on price?
Yeah, the customer went on price, they want to try everything. So for example, if you're using small disk images for all the environment, it will cost you about €42 a month. And if you are using the default wizard, the same configuration will cost you €140 a month. So that's, for me, it was a great difference. But also keep in mind, for especially the premium SSD, that you will get less IOPS. Citrix Machine Creation Service, I think you already know, everybody, that PVS is not possible in Azure, so the only option we have is machine creation services. And you first install your golden master. You do not have to create a snapshot, but you need to deallocate the virtual machine. You deploy the image in Studio, so just with MCS. And MCS removes and recreates the VM when needed. So if your VM is stopped, it will be removed from Azure, and you don't have any IaaS cost of this VM. But there are any leftovers when the VM is removed, and I contacted Citrix because this customer deployed the VDI environment on premium SSD, and the identity disk of 1 gigabyte is also stored on premium SSD. But as we learned, we have the first tier, it's 32 gigabytes, and every identity disk will cost you €4.90. You're able also to use standard HSD for this, and then the identity disk price will go down to €1.30. So I think that's an improvement for MCS. For example, if you have 100 workers, the identity disk will cost you €490. So that's a big cost over there. Creating a hosting connection, you can follow my blog. I described it over there, but what it basically does, it will register an enterprise app in Azure AD and gives access to your whole Azure subscription to do all the MCS stuff and all that kind of things. Another great thing is Citrix Smart Scale, and Smart Scale you can use it for workloads on public clouds to save money. And Citrix Smart Scale is now available for Citrix Cloud Virtual Apps and Desktop customers. So when you're using Citrix Cloud, and also when you have Citrix Virtual Apps and Desktop Premium, I still need to get used to the new words, with the customer success service. As the release of Citrix Virtual Apps and Desktop 1808, they announced this feature for the on-prem installation deprecated as of 31 December 2018. So I think it's only it's only available for Citrix Cloud customers, or maybe it has something to do with the Windows Virtual Desktop services. Maybe there's some auto-scaling over there, but I don't know. Smart Scale, you can use it for your VDI and the session host, and I did not read the manual, so I enabled it, and the delivery controller, power management, and the smart scaling, they're conflicting each other, so smart scaling was powering up and the delivery controller down, and vice versa.
And that was not during production, right?
No, luckily not. So when you start with Smart Scale, read the documentation. It describes how you disable all the power management on your delivery controller, so Smart Scale can do this for you. Smart Scale can be done load-based, so it looks to the load index, and based on the load index it will add additional workers. You can also do shadow-based scaling. For example, this customer, we did a boot storm in the POC in the morning, so 5 workers were during the POC available in the morning. As I mentioned earlier before, do not, especially in the VDI on Azure, do not shut down the VMs on or off. So you can add a capacity buffer. So if you have, for example, 100 users logged in, it will add 10 additional workers. So you can have 10 additional users logged in. And the power off delay, that's a very good one, but I explained it before. The Smart Scale will wait before shutting down the VM. So if you relog in, you get back on the same VM. You do not have to wait for the reprovisioning.
Alright, as soon as you want to have a workload high available within Azure, you have to create an availability set. So in this case it was for NetScaler, but if you build a domain controller environment or a SQL environment within Azure, you have to create an availability set. The availability set, for those who don't know, consists of full domains. So a full domain does basically mean a rack where you have the power plates and the network, etc. So if you have different full domains, the VM can be placed in different full domains. So if there is a power failure within the rack, or a network switch crashed or something, the other machine is still running in the other rack. You also have the update domain, which is meant to be for Microsoft to apply updates to it. So within the rack you have several update domains, so they're never gonna update the entire rack. They will update per update domain. So for a NetScaler in this case, you have 2 racks, virtually, but the NetScaler is placed in 2 full domains and also in several update domains. So if there is an update or a hardware failure, it is still running on the other rack. This is what you can see here. The compute is in 1 or 2 or 3 different full domains, but also the disk, if it is a managed disk. If you use unmanaged disk, they are in a storage account, which could be in another full domain or something. So that's why managed disks are very much preferred within Azure now, especially in availability sets. I think I saw it last week. If you're running a VM with unmanaged disk, there is also a mention by Azure. Please convert the disk to managed disks to get rid of the unmanaged disk. Here you see the example. For instance, this was the first NetScaler HA template within the marketplace. It was based on NetScaler 12.0. It's still there. If you deploy it, you'll not see any disk at all. You have a storage account, which is in here. If you dive into the storage blob, you will see the disks that are in there. It's like a database or something. So compare it to Hyper-V, you not see the disk within the folder on your hypervisor. If you deploy the NetScaler 12.1 HA pair, which is based on the 12.1 firmware, you will see there are now 2 disks in the HA pair. There's also a storage account still, but that's used for the boot diagnostics. So only it's a capture of the screen to see what the VM is doing. So the managed disks are only are with the VM, and if you see it from here, so the managed disk is also at the same place where the VM lives. So if there is a full domain failure, a power failure or something, or there is an update, both VM and the disk are together into another domain. Well, for me, on NetScaler, deploying NetScaler, I'm pretty used to it, but in Azure it's a kind of different thing. It's because you have to use Azure Load Balancer. You cannot assign a public IP address directly to a VM. Or you can do it, but not to an HA part, because you have the failover mechanism. And Azure is not able to fail over the public IP address. So that's actually where you're using the ALB for. The ALB is a kind of service within Azure. It's not a VM. Well, it is a kind of VM, but it's not an operating system. It's a microservice running in Azure. So the ALB it's high available by default. You assign the floating public IP address to the ALB, and based on the rules within the ALB configuration, you're able to forward the public IP to the machine itself. So within this scenario, we had 2 ALBs because we do also load balancing on the back end. So also for your internal load balancers, you have to create an ALB and publish the rules of that. As we mentioned earlier, if you deploy the marketplace template, by default they will give you a DS3 V2 machine, which contains 4 vCPUs and 14 gig of RAM. So you can imagine how expensive that is. For a regular use case, you don't need that amount of RAM, and also the vCPUs are overrated. So we want to lower it to a cheaper VM, but then we run against it to the issue that the machine has 3 VNICs. So that's why they picked the higher template, because you have 3 NICs. So we run against that issue. At the moment they are still running the same template because we did a network design, etc., separate management from DMZ trusted network. We suggested them you are able to combine management with the DMZ trusted, or create a manner for that to get rid of 1 NIC, but unfortunately they didn't pick the choice yet, but they are able to. And I'll show you later what the cost will save if you do that. But then again, it is in the template, so you have to get rid of that after you deploy the template or your template itself. And again, you can use the Azure price calculator on forehand to see what will cost in NetScaler if it's running and deployed high available. As mentioned, I use my preferred network design depending on the customer. By default, I would have a management network, which is outside of the regular interfaces. You do have a DMZ, and also a trusted DMZ in this case, because we want to do load balancing on the internal part, where we use the trusted DMZ network for, otherwise we have to deploy multiple NetScaler instances. For instance, you could have a customer where the trusted DMZ is not needed, because they want to do load balancing, or they have another load balancer running internally. So you don't need 3 NICs. You have 1 NIC for management and the other NIC for the DMZ traffic, where you do the reverse proxy stuff. So then there's no issue to lower the VM to a 2 base NIC machine with maybe 2 vCPUs, 4 gig of RAM. So then you can pick another SKU without any issue. You have to shut down the VM, you say resize, you picked another template or you picked another machine template, and it will change the hardware underneath, the virtual hardware. But then again, it's always security versus cost, so you have to agree with the customer, we can do it for you, but does it match your security design, or in this case, we made a design earlier, so that's why they're still running on the 3 NIC version, because it's based on security. As I mentioned, the price calculator, you see what happened here is the default template, which is the D3V2 VM based on the 4 vCPU, 40 gig of RAM. With a managed disk, it costs roughly €200 a month. But it's not HA, so you have to do HA pairing here. And then you see that you have a monthly total of €400 and a yearly total of 5,000 euros. If you are able to lower it to still a good VM with 2 vCPUs, 4 gig of RAM, which is the default for Netscale on-prem as well, you have you see that monthly cost will get lower or divided by 2. It's almost €100. So in the end, you will save €2,500 only on Netscale a year if you lower it to a lower VM, if you're able to. So this is what you could do in forehand together. Imagine what will it cost also on other VMs, etc. It's not only on Netscaler.
ALB is free or?
I think ALB is free, yeah. Not totally free, but the basic is free. You can get some advanced features and then you will charge for that. But those are microservices as well. So you can find it out. I think it's based on how many load balancing rules you have within the ALB. So if you create 10 load balancing rules, they charge you for 4 of some. If you deploy the template, you will see some secure network security groups. So a network security group is deployed within the VNIC, or with the VNIC. So you have a network security group where, say, it's allowed to get, I want to connect via SSH from my management VM or something, or I want to publish this, where you create a network security group for. Keep in mind, network security group is not a firewall. You can deploy a firewall within Azure, but that's a different story. Network security group is basically an ACL, which is stateful, so you have to create rules for incoming, outbound traffic, but there's no advanced inspection or something else. But I will always advise using network security group to be not able to do everything and have your traffic in control. By default, there is a per NIC network security group, but from a enterprise networking design, I prefer doing it based on the subnets you have. So like we do here, you create like with a firewall, if you want to hop from one instance to another, you want to create rules based on that security zone and not based on that network security group, because you can have so many network security groups that you never will have a very good overview of what's happening.
You guys only do it on subnet or also per NIC for some VM?
We started with doing it on subnet because the customer said we do it later, so we allow everything internally, so we do it later. We were not happy with that, but it was their choice. They need to go spin up the environment very soon. But in the end, it was a pain in the ass to get that working afterwards because they have to. It was production already, so they changed it. So it's like with if you're doing an on-prem network design, get this working on forehand and then start building the environment. And maybe you have to tweak it every now and then, but it's not a big deal for that. The deployment of Netscale itself was interesting as well because we do have a naming convention, so we will name the VMs like we do, the VNICs, etc. But if you deploy it by default from the template, you are not able to rename the VM. You can do, but then you have to convert the Azure template, which is, I think it's around 500 rules or something, based on JSON, etc. So then I need to find out what we're going to do about it. Are we going to tweak the template, or are we build our own template stuff? Also, MAC-based forwarding is enabled by default within the configuration, which is, in my opinion, a very bad feature of NetScaler. It's just saying listen what's incoming and forward it on the outside as well, so not do routing, etc. So I want to get rid of that as well. So then we decided maybe we can use a PowerShell script to deploy the entire stack. So that's where we started. Based on the design we had, there was we had a management network already, the DMZ and the trusted DMZ. So this is what we created earlier in advance. So the VNet was already there. It's not based on in the script we created, because there are several other VMs already running. You could do it, of course, if you have if you want to go set it up from scratch. But yeah, most of the time there is already a VNet or some Azure stuff. So the networks were already in place. So basically we have 6 scripts. 4 are for PowerShell scripts to deploy the VMs with managed disk in Azure. So ADC1 and ADC2, and also the both load balancers we deploy via separate scripts. You could do it in one script, of course, but it's to be in control. We use some separate scripts. And then I have 2 post scripts, which just are NetScaler commands to put in via CLI to do the after configuration and create the HA pair. You could do this, of course, via Nitro to do a PowerShell Nitro API call within the scripts, but time was an issue as well, so that's why we created the normal NetScaler commands. So this is one of the scripts we have. This is the script for building the one of the VMs, one of the ADCs. So we create a lot of variables. You see here, we pick the right SKU, which is in the marketplace as well. So the right VM with the right disk, etc. This is with managed disks. So all good with that. At that moment, there was no template in the store available with managed disk, so I have to find out how do I get rid of that storage account and get my disk separated from the storage account together with the VM. And then also in the script we can define what will be the default admin account here and the password what we want to use. So it's all secret and we can reuse it afterwards. So all good. We define the networks. You see we have 3 IPs, etc. Keep in mind, NetScaler HA is based on the ink mode, so you have 2 separate NetScaler configurations with each have their own subnet IPs, and only the virtual IP addresses are shared. So that's because of the Azure load balancer and the floating IPs, etc. But that's you need a lot amount of IPs for that. So in the end, after the script run, we do have an HA pair which is synchronizing, and you see what the script deployed. I think it's around 30 Azure objects with that template. So you could reuse it if you want. I can share the script with you if you want. So maybe I'll put it online. I can put it online later, but. Yeah, you can automate it. You see all the naming conventions, etc. We do have the NICs are with the same name as the VM is. We do have the security groups. These were still based on the per NIC security group, so that's why we have a lot of security groups here. I renamed the Azure load balancer as well. So this, in the end, it was very nice experience as well. So you do Can you start a lesson?
Yeah, so lessons learned when I started the first one using Azure. Yeah, again, it's just somebody else's data center, so learn all the rules of Azure. Yeah, and it's not different than the same Zen server or VMware or something like that. Cloud is enabled for fast delivery, so this customer was great that he can get a contract by deploying a new environment within days. And the use case of cloud is definitely not cost savings. It will cost you more money, but you have to look to the other enablers, for example, fast delivery, and get a big contract and be better than the competition. So the cloud development is fast. So the things I've learned yesterday are different tomorrow. And when we deployed this environment, Microsoft announced the Windows Virtual Desktop Service. Citrix also announced the DAS. So I'm very interested how this will develop yeah, how this will develop in the future. I think there are use cases, and I think to use Citrix Cloud Services, you do not have to have that much IaaS VMs in your Azure subscription. And the best thing I've learned is to beforehand cost prediction, because you will be surprised if the bill comes. And then the bill comes. No, are there any questions?
So, the main thing is use the Azure calculator on forehand.
Is it, are the numbers true when you calculate? So at the end, it match more or less?
Yeah, maybe what you heard they are now looking what they can do on premise still. So they moved the VDAs to on-prem, most of the VMs. But I think that's based on the cost. So maybe it's a nice experience for them as well. But yeah, it is not cheaper for sure.
No, what I mean is the cost calculator where calculated before you deploy the whole thing, run the whole thing. Does it at the end match the real cost?
No. All.
No, but you have some guidelines.
A guideline, but
And you're not surprised when the first bill comes and this customer like, I calculate something else. And
So what you see from here, you can tweak it a lot. So to get rid of extra cost, overhead cost, small disks, lower VM templates, resources you don't need, or you
but
can.
it will not be more than the pre-calculator.
Yeah, you can scale up later, but the micro cost that is also an amount of money. So the IOPS, etc. So that can change a bit, but that's not like filling the total bill.
As you have to load your channel to your own network, because this was what I experienced. This is a lot of cost when you have traffic speed.
Yeah.
This was much more than the VMs cost at the end.
Yeah, but that for them it's the time to market is very low. So while we are thinking about are we putting the Nutanix plug on-prem, they still need to build up another data center. So they first deploy VDAs in Azure, and then later they can move it back to the on-premises and lower it. So it's also a temporary situation as well to get time to market very low.
Was Citrix Cloud ever an option for the customer case, or?
no, this customer has a very high concurrency rate.
Yeah.
So Citrix Cloud, you cannot buy licenses on concurrency rate, so that was not an option for them. So they only looked at costs, and this scenario was cheaper for them than using Citrix Cloud. So
And in your opinion, when you strike away the cost part of the equation for this customer, if cost wouldn't be an issue with concurrency?
yeah, go for Citrix Cloud.
Yeah.
You do not have all the VMs running and configuration. So go for Citrix Cloud, deploy 2 cloud connectors, you're good to go.
All right, I just heard we run out of time. So
Okay.
any other questions, please do outside.
Okay. Thank you very much.